Okay, 7-1, 0 and negative exponents. It is asking you to simplify the following expression, which is 2 to the negative 4 power. So when you have a number being raised to a negative exponent, we have to write it underneath 1 and make the exponent positive. We cannot leave a number with a negative exponent. It is considered unsimplified. So then you would raise 2 to the 4th power, which is 16. So our answer would be 1 over 16. That's number 1. Number 2, it is asking you to write an equivalent expression with positive exponents only. We have x to the 6th and y to the negative 4. Okay, so what I like to do with these is highlight the term with the negative exponent. And this is because the term with the positive exponent does not get touched at all, so do not move it at all. The one with the negative exponent has to be moved underneath it. So we'll have x to the 6th over y to the positive 4. The negative exponent then becomes positive. So this will be our answer. We would have x to the 6th over y to the 4, and that would be A. Number 3, I have x over y to the negative 2 power. So remember, we cannot have a negative exponent. We need to move it to simplify that. So what we do is highlight the term with the negative exponent, because that has to be moved. You do not touch anything else. So since this is at the bottom, I will be moving it to the top, and I would have x y to the positive 2 power. So I make the exponent positive. So my answer would be xy to the 2nd power, which is D for number 3. Number 4, it is asking you to simplify the following expression, which is 4 to the negative 2 power. So again, remember, we cannot have a negative exponent. So when I have a negative exponent with a number, I have to write it underneath 1 and make the exponent positive. So then 4 squared would be 16. So my answer would be 1 over 16 for number 4. Number 5, it is asking you to simplify the following expression, negative 4 to the negative 3rd power. Okay, so again, with the negative exponent, I had to move it down in the denominator underneath 1. So I have negative 4 to the positive 3 power, which will give me a negative 64. So my answer would be 1 over negative 64. Number 6, it is asking you to write the expression with positive exponents only, and then simplify if possible. So that means the answer is not going to be risen to the power. So, okay, number 6, it is asking you to write the expression with positive exponents only, then simplify if possible. So I have negative 8 to the negative 2 power. Now, before I continue this, we need to address something. There's a difference between this and this. I made these positive exponents, but notice how one of these looks like this one, just a negative 8 to the power, but this one has parentheses on it. There is a clear difference between them, and your calculator will read it differently too. This one is the same as saying negative 8 squared as negative 8 times negative 8. This one down here is the equivalent of saying negative 1, which is just negative here, times 8, but this squared is technically being read as just on the 8, not on the negative. And it may not seem significant, but when you multiply these together and if you put them in the calculator, you will get two different signs. This one will give you a positive 64, this one will give you a negative 64. And that's important to know the difference, because when we do this problem, if you put it in the wrong way in the calculator, you're going to get the wrong sign. And I'll show you visually on the calculator for the next part. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this on the calculator with and without parentheses to show you how the signs are different. So I'm going to first do negative 8 to the negative 2 power. This button above the division symbol is called a caret. That will be where you put in your exponents of choice. So I'm going to put in negative 2. Now I'm going to do math enter to show you it as a fraction. So we have negative 1 over 64. Now I'm going to do it with parentheses around the negative 8. So that would be negative 8 to the negative 2 power. Notice the sign difference. With parentheses and without parentheses will give you two different signs. That's why it's important to type it in as shown, because it could give you a very different sign. Okay. So we have, this will be 1 over negative 8 squared. Write the 8 squared inside parentheses away from the negative, because this negative isn't part of the exponent. But we move it down because we have a negative exponent. So then we'll have 1 over negative 64. So we'll have a negative 1 over 64. Okay, number 8. It is asking you to simplify the expression. My expression is 8g m to the 0 power. So unless what I'm raising to the 0 power is 0, like 0 to the 0 power, everything else raised to the 0 power will just be 1, it will just become 1. So if I highlight the term with the 0 exponent, it is just m. So then m to the 0 power would just be 1, again assuming m is not 0. So then I'm just left with 8g. So my answer for number 8 will be 8g. Number 9, we have 1 over p to the negative 13 power. Remember, we cannot have a negative exponent, so what we need to do is move it up to make it positive. So we move it up to where the 1 is, make it positive, we'll have p to the 13 as my answer. Number 10, we have negative 3x to the negative 2 power. So what we need to do first is highlight just what has the negative exponent. So I'm going to highlight the x to the negative 2. Do not highlight the negative 3. Do not touch that negative 3. So I'm going to move the highlighted portion, which is the variable with the negative 2 exponent. So I'm going to move that below the negative 3. So I will have negative 3 over x to the positive 2. Again, that 3 does not move. So I will have negative 3 over x to the positive 2. And that's number 10. Number 11, write an equivalent expression with positive exponents only. So I have x to the 5 and y to the negative 3. Again, highlight the term that has the negative exponent and only that one. The x to the 5 stays where it's at. You move the y to the negative 3 below it and you make the exponent positive. So my answer would be x to the 5 over y to the 3, which would be D for number 11. Number 12. Number 12, I have a lot going on. The first thing I highlight and I look for is the term with the 0 exponent, because that I know automatically becomes 1. So I highlight that and it becomes 1. So I have 2g to the negative 1 power and f to the negative 5 all over 1. You know, anything divided by 1 is itself. So that all becomes 2g to the negative 1 f to the negative 5. So now I've got to simplify this further because I have negative exponents. So highlight the variables with the negative exponents. Don't touch the 2, don't highlight the 2. The negative exponents are not on the 2. So I'm going to move both of these letters, f and g, below the 2 and make the exponents positive. G becomes just g to the 1, or just g, because we don't normally write a 1 to the exponent. We have f to the 5, the positive 5, because that negative 5 becomes positive, and this will be my answer. So I'll have 2 over g f to the positive 5 exponents. And that's number 12.